All right, well, welcome and good morning, everyone, to the 2024 Habitat Strategic Initiative Lead Subrecipient Summit. We are really excited to have everyone here today. Just so you know who's all in the room, we have both our subrecipients as well as our advisory team. We have a lot of guests from our agencies, and we also have some guests from the recovery community, including our LIO partners. So we are really excited today to learn about your project some more, hear what you've been up to since we've kicked off our contracts, and then also have some really good discussions around how we're all trying to make sure that our projects are connected to our broader recovery goals and that we are able to really identify opportunities to build a network and collaborate together in this space. So I'm going to, for the sake of time, hand it over. I should introduce myself for those who don't know me. I am Elizabeth Spalding. I am the Habitat Strategic Initiative Policy Co-Lead for the Department of Natural Resources. And I'm going to hand it over to my partner, Jennifer Griffiths, to also introduce herself and welcome our opening speakers.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good morning, everyone. As Elizabeth said, I'm Jennifer Griffiths with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I am Elizabeth's counterpart, the policy co-lead at WDFW. We're thrilled to have you here today and look forward to a whirlwind set of updates as well as some robust discussions in our World Café later. So it's my pleasure to first introduce Nicole Chernomsky, WDFW Restoration Division Manager, to provide us some opening remarks. So Nicole, let me turn it over to you.
Good morning. Thanks, Jennifer. Really appreciate being here, and I'm really excited. Thanks everyone for attending, making time today, because I know it's hard to squeeze in, like one more webinar or one more conversation. There's work to get done, but I really appreciate you being here. And I think that really highlights the value of it coming together like this. I mean, really, we all know there is so much work to get done, but the best strategy is to actually do it together, because not any one of us is going to be able to accomplish it on our own. And Puget Sound is vast, and the problems are vast, and there's a lot of need. And so it's really by having all of us in one space, being able to connect, come up with ideas, and work together and build together, that we're actually going to be able to be more successful. I really, truly believe that we, by lifting each other up, we're actually multiplying our benefits, not just adding, but multiplying. It's definitely a more, it's more of an exponential type of growth than it is with just one of us going at it alone. And I think, we throw around the word partnership an awful lot, partners and working with partners. But I think that here for the SILs, it's such an important part of, and actually is the only way in which the work gets done, is through partnership. Again, there's a lot of great ideas out there, but it actually is from the collective where these really nice, interesting ideas spark and grow into something real. And each of you bring such a unique perspective. That's the only way we can build this, because we each have a part, we have some overlapping parts, and that is also where we can help lift each other up. If you've seen something, done something, look at something in a slightly different way. And I'm not sure, and I just want to take one moment to step back and make sure that everyone knows what the Habitat SIL is and the value of that. And I say that a little sheepishly because, of course, you're here. And so, yes, you know what it is. But I will say that even folks that work at our own agency are like, I work right next to Jennifer and Matt and Rachel and Cameron, and I don't know exactly what they do. And so I just want to take a step back and highlight what the SILs, the value of the SILs. This has been a multi-year effort. Many of you are aware, the conversations have been going on for decades about how to address the problems in Puget Sound. And there are a couple of key pathways that come out of the work from PSNRP several years ago. And one of the key pathways is actions, implementation on the ground. And we do have programs that fit that need. The other piece of it is strategic thinking and planning and trying to figure out what are the new innovations and how do we put together our collective ideas and thought to grow something that's new and innovative. And that is where the SILs have come in. And the Habitat SIL is, of course, just one of the three main programs, but really the key part of that is the strategy. And the key part of that also is that discussion and innovation. And that only happens with activities like today. And I encourage you each today to think about it from the perspective of, the discussion helps us understand, and it takes time, right? You might not have You may not have that kernel of an idea and it's just going to go from today, but it takes time to build, to listen, like to really deeply listen to each other. What are you doing? What are you thinking? To be a little vulnerable in this space as well, and be open to like, hey, this is what we're doing, but you got another idea or how to do that? Like maybe that's, it can be a little hard to hear, but it also can be a real opportunity to get something new out of the end. And I think it's also your opportunity to respond and to lean in. And when you hear something or see something and you're not be curious and ask those questions, because a lot of growth comes from just that curiosity and learning a little bit more. And we know this works, right? We have examples. We have programs like Shore Friendly that came out of this wonderful partnership, federal partnership, a kernel of an idea. Will this work? Is this helpful? And then it grows into something much bigger and much broader. And I think, that's just one example. We have others where we're bolstering existing ideas and thoughts like integrative floodplain management or riparian strategies. And we build tools. Shoreline monitoring toolbox is an example of that, or additional funding for MSDG and marine shoreline design guidelines. So these are all just examples of how to build these kernels of ideas and take them forward. So I guess I challenge you all today to lean into that conversation, really enjoy the fact that you're learning from each other, and don't be discouraged if you walk away with like not that next new brilliant project, but instead an idea that you can talk about more with others and grow over time. So thanks for having me here today to share those thoughts with you all. And thank you so much again for making the time and being part of this.
Thank you, Nicole. Really appreciate that. I'm a facilitator, so I don't get to take the challenge verbally today, but I'm going to take it in my head, and really excited for the day ahead. Now I'd like to welcome Tom Gorman, DNR Aquatic Resources Division Administrator. I knew I was going to mess that up, to give some additional welcoming remarks from our DNR co-lead.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here. That was great, Nicole. So at DNR, we're very thrilled that HSIL has been a big part of our team. It's exciting to see all of the work that's funded by this program. So I feel like we get a lot of benefit at DNR. We get to be a part of the innovative research and pilot projects that are accomplished through HSIL funding. We get to, have contributions that are able to help advance important initiatives and programs at DNR, and the collaboration that we see across the different sectors, which accelerate our ability to meet many of our management and conservation goals, is exceptional. For example, partnerships around marine vegetation. This has greatly contributed to DNR's conservation goals, such as our kelp and eelgrass health and conservation planning efforts that are underway. In addition, HSIL has funded efforts that are contributing to our ability to develop and adaptively manage our habitat stewardship program. And this is a critical piece, particularly for state-owned aquatic land management, that we provision many of our land use agreements, things like leases, easements, with stewardship measures that help protect the state-owned aquatic lands in the environment. And, HSIL directly contributes to this work. And it's been, again, kind of DNR focused here, but this is what it means to us. We have the team embedded. We get to benefit from all of the work that's being funded out on the landscape that you are all doing, and we get to use that information. And so it's really just a very big iterative process for us. And I'm just excited to see this work continue and to build these collaborations, particularly with all of the exciting work that you all are doing and proposing. And we'll continue to see this work grow. So thank you. Really great to be here.
Thank you, Tom. All right. Well, with that, we have a very ambitious agenda today. So Jennifer is going to throw that up for us. And then once I go through the agenda, we're also going to put our speaker lineup into our chat so that you can all see where you are in the presentation. We have alerted Alan. He knows he's on deck first, so he's not surprised. But as I said, so today really is an opportunity for everyone to hear about the great work that you are all doing and what those big milestones are for 2024, because many of you have already hit the ground running. But we also want to have time building that network. And as Nicole and Tom alluded to, finding opportunities for additional collaboration or connection, some brainstorming, really working together around shared challenges and opportunities. And then really here at the Habitat Strategic Initiative Lead, you know, we're really trying to lean into some of these stickier, more complex issues around climate resiliency. And how do we engage the recovery community, including our tribal partners and our local communities and our lead entities and our local integrating organizations. So we really want to hear your thoughts on how you're thinking about that as well. We want to take all of the things we hear today, and it's really going to inform our program's thinking as well as yours. How can we support you? How can we advance these conversations in different spaces? So in light of that all, we are going to hear from each of our subrecipients that have been recently funded under our last investment plan. And we are asking each of you to speak for 4 minutes, no more. I will be writing that clock pretty closely today because we have so many folks to get through. But we're going to do that from 9:15 until 10:20. We'll go through about half of you. And then we're going to have a World Café conversation. And when we get to that point, I'll explain how you can kind of navigate to those different rooms. Each of them will be facilitated. We'll have note takers. It's a kind of choose your adventure day. You get to like kind of direct your conversations and where you want to make some contributions. We'll then take a break. And then we'll return and kind of finish up our lightning round talks from our subrecipients, have another opportunity to engage in conversation with one another so that you can, in fact, kind of touch on a couple of different topics today. And then we will wrap up for the full group, have some closing comments with you. And then we'll take a lunch break, and then we have contracting office hours. We'll talk a bit more of that at the end of our presentations. That's for those of you who would like some more information around our Smart Simple navigation system and our cultural resource requirements. So that's a subrecipient special. One thing I did want to mention, your meeting invite said that we would adjourn at noon. There was just too many good things to try to fit into a 3-hour time slot. So we are now aiming to break for lunch at 12:30. For those who have a hard stop, we completely understand. But I just wanted to let you know that we're kind of creeping into your lunch hour here today, just so that we have time for some good dialogue. So with that, I would say, Jennifer, is there anything that you would like to add or that maybe I've forgotten before we kind of kick off our lightning round conversations?
I think we're all set. I've put the order for round 1 in the chat. Sorry, the last one got cut off, so that's kind of repeated there. And to avoid confusion, I'll hold off on putting in round 2, just so folks don't get confused about where we're at.
Great.
But I think we're good.
That sounds perfect. All right, Alan, we're going to hand it over to you to talk about flexible state funding sources from Bonneville Environmental Foundation.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Alan Warren from Bonneville Environmental Foundation, and I'm happy to get us started today with a lightning talk on the Flexible State Funding Sources Convening, which is just a long-winded way of saying TDR work group. As most of you are aware, the restoration efforts that are being led all across the state begin with the difficult task of acquiring the land upon which restoration projects can be built. Each biennium, the state invests roughly $100 million in acquisitions to conserve habitat and open space. Grant program policies prevent these funds from being leveraged with transfer of development right credits the way that local investments in conservation are, preventing an opportunity to leverage these investments and create more capacity for the land conservation system. In partnership with Forterra and ESA, BEF will facilitate a 2-year legal and policy analysis and a convening of partners to analyze the challenges and develop grant guideline recommendations and/or policy solutions to create more flexibility around transfer of development right credit opportunities. This project picks up where previous efforts to look into these policy constraints left off, starting with a floodplains by design effort in 2016 and a follow-up effort by the Nature Conservancy, Forterra, and the Washington Association of Land Trusts in 2019. Both previous efforts led to conclusions that this is allowable under the right circumstances, but neither one defined what those circumstances were. So that's what we're going to do. The kickoff of this effort is next week with partners including Department of Ecology, the Recreation and Conservation Office, the State Conservation Commission, Washington Association of Land Trusts, Whatcom Family Farmers, Puget Sound Partnership, the Department of Commerce, and Pierce, King, and Snohomish counties, all of which make up what we're calling the TDR work group. We've developed a draft charter for the work group and a draft RFP to hire a law firm, which after review by the TDR work group, we will release and have a law firm on contract by late spring, early summer. We anticipate draft recommendations from the law firm by the end of August, at which time we will initiate a series of 5 monthly roundtable meetings with the TDR work group to discuss and recommend changes to policies to 1, allow state-funded acquisitions to be leveraged by TDR credits, and 2, how to manage the revenues from future TDR credit sales to meet the needs of the land conservation system. At the conclusion of the roundtable discussions in April of 2025, the recommendations for policy changes will be presented to state agency partners, and for the remainder of the grant period through June 30th, 2026, the project team will shift our efforts to provide assistance to our agency partners for getting the necessary leadership approval to implement those recommendations. So by this time next year, we will be able to share some of those recommendations and findings that are coming out of the process. With these changes in place, it will open up the opportunity for state investments to create revenues of up to $30 million that can be recycled back into future acquisitions or other capacity support for partners across the state that are leading efforts to get land conserved. I look forward to sharing more with you as things progress.
Thank you, Alan. All right, we are going to keep moving and hand the floor over to the Department of Commerce.
Hi, everyone. Angela Sanfilipo with the Department of Commerce. Really excited to be launching a pilot program to advance transfer of development rights and land conservation and local infrastructure programs in the Puget Sound region. So very excited to have the opportunity to partner with the Puget Sound National Estuaries Program to build on work that Commerce has done in the past. Just really quick overview, TDR is a market-based tool to support the voluntary transfer of development rights from areas a community would like to see less development. Those are really deemed sending areas to places the community would like to focus new growth, deemed receiving areas. And then LCLIP provides a financial incentive for cities to participate in TDR programs. So they really go hand in hand. They're both important tools for local governments to use to address climate resilience and adaptation, and really plan more effectively by directing growth to areas that are more compact, walkable, and served potentially by high capacity transit. And conserve areas that are of high environmental value, conserving open space, that kind of thing. It's really not to limit growth, but to plan more effectively for where that growth goes. The pilot program is going to consist of at least 3 cities in the King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties. We'll be working in collaboration with a consultant that will assist those local governments to assess the cultural, environmental, and economic factors needed for successful TDR and LCLIP design and implementation. Something that we've heard quite a bit at Commerce is there are cities interested in advancing these programs in the region, but they really need the technical assistance and more capacity to do so. So Commerce will be managing that contract with a consultant who will really be working in collaboration and doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the local governments. Towards the conclusion of the pilot program, we'll be holding workshops that are geared towards local governments, other local governments that are interested in learning more about implementing their own TDR and LCLIP programs. And the final products will be a guidebook and toolkit that will really be able to provide some technical assistance and guidance for communities that are interested. So Commerce just released our RFP to get our consultant on board, and we'll be working on identifying pilot program cities in the next couple months. Towards the end of the year, we'll have project plans in place for each of the cities participating in the pilot program and begin the feasibility studies. This year, folks in Pierce, King, and Snohomish counties, if you think you're in a city that would be interested in participating, please reach out. That's my shameless plug. But we'll be reaching out as well, doing quite a bit of outreach to cities in those 3 counties. You know, while we do have a narrower scope that's focused on those 3 counties in the beginning in the pilot program, as we progress with the project, the workshops will really be geared to any jurisdiction that might be interested in TDR and LCLIP. And the guidebook and toolkit will really be available to across the state, really. So any of the communities that might be interested should be able to use that guidebook and toolkit to help in their efforts. So thank you for the opportunity to kind of go through this. Excited to share updates as we progress in the work.
Thank you, Angela. One thing I wanted to mention, we're going to be moving through these very quickly. If you all want to follow up with each other, feel free to use the chat. I know that it can be distracting, but it's a great way to connect if you want to plug a question or make a contact. So encourage you to do that over there. Just don't lose sight of where you are in the lineup, because that will go straight to the top of your chat. Okay, so let's keep moving. I'm going to hand the floor now to Thurston County.
Hey, hi, thank you for having us. I am joined here. Well, I'm Ashley Rye, Community Planning Manager for Thurston County, and I am joined here by Dana Bowers, one of the planners on our team, working on farm and forest land conservation. We're very excited to be a recipient because it will help us develop a holistic strategy for our county to incentivize working lands conservation. We do have a number of existing programs that include conservation futures, open space, tax programs, transfer development rights, as was mentioned before, as well as purchase of development rights. We are hoping to improve the effectiveness of those existing programs. We've done a lot of outreach here in the last few years to our farmers and foresters, and our programs are not really working for them. Times have changed since we originally adopted them about 30 years ago. So in addition to taking a fresh look at the enrollment requirements of all those programs, and even potentially bringing on new ones, we also want to identify funding streams for the programs that we already have in place. Our coalition includes Fish and Wildlife Partners Program, our Coastal Partners Program, Thurston Conservation District, Wazoo Extension, American Farmland Trust, and the cities of Olympia and Tumwater as it specifically relates to TDR. We have had a little bit of trouble onboarding a consultant team. Our goal was to have one in place at this point. However, we have had to run our RFP or extend the RFP. But we're grateful that we do have coalition partners because they have helped us get the word out and encourage firms to apply. So we have our extended RFP closing tomorrow. So everyone on this call, please cross your fingers for us that we get at least 1 or 2 proposals. We haven't used that delay to stop the project, though we have already put a survey out. It's been out about 2 weeks, and I just want to turn it over to Dana real quick because we were surprised at the response that we've even gotten in 2 weeks. Dana?
Hello there. Yes, I wanted to share because the survey has just been so successful at reaching the target audience. So we were really able, through our partnerships and existing relationships, to target our rural folks and actually capture what zip code they're from and have a map that people were able to click on where they're from, so we can see where they're responding from. And that's really valuable to us as we look into the county areas and see what works for our rural landowners. So one of the things that we really took away from, or we're taking away from the survey so far with about 70 respondents in 2 weeks, is that the highest priority is protecting drinking water, or for this group of people that has responded, is protecting drinking water, and then followed really closely by food security. And then really also a lot of concern about protecting open space. So it's just great to know and have that kind of data to pull from as we're moving forward and providing this information to the consultants.
And so essentially the survey will inform our conservation priorities as a county. And then we're essentially going to do a matchmaking tool in terms of the programs and then funding streams that will help address those conservation priorities. So at the end of this project, we hope to have a whole menu of county-led conservation tools, as well as funding options. And happy to answer any questions during chat.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna keep moving. Let's hand the floor to Kitsap County, which I think is you, Brittany.
Yeah. There we go. Hi, I'm Britney Gordon. I'm the Natural Resource Coordinator in the Kitsap County Department of Community Development. We have a environmental programs division there. And so, yeah, so our project is kind of the second and final phase of the Kitsap Natural Resource Asset Management Program. This project is changing planning paradigms. It will finalize development of the Kitsap Natural Resource Asset Management Program, which is an effort to change planning paradigms to manage natural resources as community assets in the public trust to be stewarded with the same strategic approach as built assets. The CAN ramp, as we affectionately call it, will bring natural resources to the forefront of decision-making across all Kitsap County departments. And so this program was started in 2018. It was funded in 2019 with EPA funds from Ecology through the Stormwater Strategic Initiative. In collaboration with our partners at Suquamish and Port Gamble-Sklallam tribes, as well as Washington Environmental Council, we have done a number of things so far. We've researched methods for managing natural assets, which is a relatively new concept, so there's not many examples available. We've built an inventory of natural assets as a database in Cartograph, which is an asset management software program that's used by other county departments that manage assets such as public works, parks, stormwater, etc. We've selected assets for management in our initial phase. And so the assets that we selected are streams, marine shorelines, and forests. And so long-term, we could adaptively manage the program to add additional assets. We've researched available data sets that could be used to track the condition of those assets. And we have selected different attributes that will go into the scoring for the condition of those assets. We selected methods for breaking up the county and the assets into smaller management units. We met with other county departments to learn how they manage built assets. We incorporated language into our comp plan update to institutionalize the program, and we created a GIS story map to share the program concept with the public and our partners. And so with this next round of funding, we anticipate that we'll be wrapping up the program development and moving into implementation. So we have some existing levels of service that need to be refined, and levels of service is a type of terminology for asset management that's used in built asset management typically. And so we're using that in natural resource. Asset management kind of helps us speak the same language as our other asset managers. We've also developed some desired levels of service, so like goals of where we want to go to with the condition of our natural assets, but these need to be refined as well. Our stream inventory we found needs some improvement. It's not quite as comprehensive as we'd like, so we'll be working with Wild Fish Conservancy in this phase to build that out further, starting with our two pilot watersheds, which are Big Beef and Chico watersheds. We'll be developing an implementation plan for rolling out the program across the county. This will include identifying strategies and actions for specific assets and moving the condition of those assets toward desired levels of service. We'll continue meeting regularly with our other county departments, so natural assets are considered in decision-making across all county departments, not just the Environmental Programs Division. At the end of this round of funding, we expect to have a fully developed program that can be implemented across the county to inform decision-making related to both natural and built assets. We expect that the program will be integrated into existing county plans and processes so it can serve as a tool to guide our current and future work. There's been a lot of interest in and support for this program. We're very grateful to the NEP and the SILs, and we've had a lot of support from the tribes and our other ecosystem and salmon recovery partners, as well as our built asset managers, especially in parks and stormwater divisions. Our coalition includes Washington Conservation Action Education Fund, which was formerly Washington Environmental Council, as well as Wild Fish Conservancy, and our core team partners include the Suquamish and Port Gamble-Sklallam tribes.
Great, thank you so much, Brittany. Okay, we're going to keep moving. I'm going to hand the floor now to RCO.
Hey guys, I'm Bob Warner. I'm a grant manager at RCO. It's nice to see some familiar faces on here. So I'm going to talk about a shore-friendly partnership and our new grant for the partnership, or for shore-friendly. In 2014, early NEP investments created a shore-friendly pilot program to address the issue of shoreline armor and degradation on beach habitats of privately owned residential shorelines. We started with a suite of targeted landowner incentives to initiate behavior change and providing other perspectives to shoreline landowners, and to hopefully create a desire for natural shoreline protection and restoration. In 2019, the Ecosystem Coordination Board recommended a permanent home for shore-friendly with the ESRP program that's run by Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Since then, the shore-friendly program has grown into a collaborative effort managed by ESRP and contracted through the Recreation and Conservation Office, implemented through 6 local shore-friendly programs. These include the Northwest Straits Foundation, Island County, Sunamish Tribe, King County Collaborative, which includes the Mid-Sound Fisheries Enhancement Group, King County, and the King CD, Kitsap County, and South Sound team of Mason Pierce and Thurston Conservation Districts. So working through shore-friendly with this group of implementers has resulted in several shoreline restoration projects and is developed several other opportunities that are in the pipeline for more restoration. An issue with being funded by ESRP is that the ESRP fundings are capital funds, so they're focused on the ground outcomes through restoration, and they have really limited use for outreach. And so HSIL through the years contributed to this gap in our fund and has provided us with the outreach that we need in order to develop opportunities. And so anybody that does restoration knows that the most important thing for restoration is opportunities, and working with the landowners that will help provide those opportunities. And so HSIL's really been great in helping us with that part of the program. The current grant takes outreach a step further, and it's not just working with landowners and providing those opportunities through behavior change and new perspectives, but it also expands the local restoration capacity by forming restoration practitioners like contractors and planning staff, and providing them education and capacity to really provide another level to landowners for the people that are actually doing the work and making decisions and helping people getting work done. So the key goals of our proposal are to develop a regional and local social media campaign, develop these influencer trainings to work with the contractors and planning staff and recreational practitioners, and to accelerate personal community engagement to develop these shoreline opportunities in Puget Sound. So the key outcomes for 2014 are to accelerate our social media presence. So we have a shore-friendly living video series that Northwest Straits Foundation has initiated. To continue that, we're going to have project showcases, new online videos, and other social media products. Continue also our greater traditional outreach like mailers, newsletters, and packets to homeowners. Like I said, we're going to be developing the curriculum and host workshops for influencers like contractors and planners, and have a greater presence at community events like kind of your local homeowners events and local salmon recovery events and things like that. And then to provide an opportunity for site visits that kind of are educational opportunities that could be like service focused, or to walk with educators and professionals on the beaches to provide like a real life experience and develop those perspectives for landowners. And so the outcomes, of course, are to incentivize behavior change and really develop more opportunities for restoration on residential landowners, natural or shorelines. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bob. Okay, we are now going to move to Snohomish Conservation District.
I think it's City of Everett.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Way to stay on top of it, April. That is Snohomish. You are on deck.
All right. So hi, I'm April Hines with the City of Everett, and I am here to talk a little bit about Regreen Everett. So Regreen Everett is engaging with local property owners who reside within the riparian management zone of North and Swamp Creek to encourage them to increase their vegetation, thereby improving water quality and watershed resilience to climate change. The City of Everett chose to focus on landowners in the North and Swamp Creek basins since both creeks are situated in dense urban areas with multiple water quality concerns. These basins not only have some of the highest percentages of impervious surfaces, but large segments of overburdened communities in need of resources, opportunity, and investment to help connect them to green and natural spaces. Given that Regreen Everett is a behavior change campaign, it will apply social marketing principles to the design of the campaign. So social marketing is a program planning process that identifies the barriers, challenges, and opportunities around the adoption of a specific behavior and designs the campaign with these in mind. Some of the possible campaign elements might include financial incentives, neighborhood education workshops, neighborhood stream maps, homeowner signs, and/or pledges. That piece has yet to be fully developed since much of 2024 will be spent soliciting input from in-depth interviews, resident questionnaires, and bringing together stakeholders in an advisory capacity to understand the best messaging and campaign elements that can address barriers, real or imagined, removing obstacles that landowners might face, and gear messaging to be appealing and garner favor with this target audience. The advisory group will also be sure to bring an equity and inclusion lens to the campaign planning and will include government, technical, nonprofit, and local citizens. The pilot campaign will launch in 2025. One of the other unique elements of this grant is that once the first round of the pilot is complete, we will do a reset of the campaign. So we'll evaluate what worked well, what might need to shift, and actually relaunch it for an additional year in 2026. The idea of running the campaign for a second year is that we hope to build upon the momentum of the pilot and create multiple Regreen clusters with neighboring landowners. It's something that we've seen with our rain garden rebate program, where there can be a buzz created and neighbors start asking questions and wanting to learn more. And that, maybe if we build upon that with doing tours of the pilot partners, it may eventually lead to them wanting to take advantage of the program. However, the timeline of the second year is a little bit more condensed than we saw with our rebate program, but we're still going to try and harness that momentum. Our partnering agency for this effort is Snohomish Conservation District. They will be taking the lead on the infield portion of the campaign, so meeting with landowners that are interested in participating. The district is currently partnering with the city of Bothell to implement 2 riparian habitat restoration projects in North Creek downstream from this proposed project. And so they'll obviously use that to inform how they're going to help us go about doing this program. So the milestones for 2024 focus mostly on the formative research that will inform the campaign launch in 2025, such as actually setting up the agreement with Snohomish Conservation District, which took a lot more effort than I think I was imagining. Mapping and compiling data of the potential property owners and completing a research report on similar programs to learn, what has worked, what are some of the pitfalls, and this report will also include an overall assessment of the primary audience. And then obviously the formation and the enactment of the advisory group that'll oversee the design of the campaign, which is set to, again, like I said, set to launch in 2025. So really excited to dig in. It does feel like it's been a big push to even just get started, but we're starting, so that's exciting. And yeah, more to come.
Thanks so much, April. Okay, now it is Snohomish Conservation District.
Hi, I'm Nolan Kits from the Snohomish Conservation District. And yeah, so for the Forest Stewardship Expansion Project, this is a project that includes a collaboration between 11 Puget Sound Conservation Districts. And it's an expansion of the Regional Forest Stewardship Project that was started in 2018. But this time we're adding 4 additional counties.
And the project provides forestry services across 11 counties and supports long-term viability of working forests by providing direct funding to the 11 counties and creating resources that can be used across all of Western Washington. So this project will provide more efficient delivery of services to forest landowners and increase understanding of the benefits of forest management. We hope to do this by coordinating between partners, conducting outreach, education, and technical assistance to both forest landowners and non-forest landowners. By expanding forest management education and direct technical assistance, we hope that the outcome will be a reduction in forest conversion to non-forest uses, an improvement in forest management, and on-the-ground increases in forest cover. So a couple parts of the project is expanding on our phase 1 outreach through a more broad and more equitable education and marketing campaign to both forest landowners and non-forest landowners. So this includes creating a couple short form videos, 9 vignettes, and these are to show the value of forest ecosystem services and the viability of small working forest operations. Also, like I mentioned, expanding the geographic reach and scope of the project by including 4 more counties to get us to 11 in the Puget Sound area. Expanding technical assistance to landowners with a focus on providing them with climate change adaptation strategies that build resilience, such as climate smart forest plantings to support long-term sustainability of forest canopy cover and function. Also, we'll be participating in interagency conservation district caucus, doing other relevant collaboration through existing regional meetings that foster cross-entity collaboration. And then one other piece is we're piloting 4 afforestation projects. And if you're not familiar with that term, as opposed to reforestation, which is planting after harvest or a disturbance, afforestation is planting where there's currently a different land use. So we're looking at places like marginal agricultural or pasture areas. So for 2024, a couple things that we're hoping to get going this year is hire a videographer for our outreach material. We'll be beginning the cultural resource review for our afforestation projects, and then just continuing our technical assistance and the collaborative meetings that we've been doing since the first phase. And yeah, key audiences for this, it's a focus on small forest landowners, but also non-forest landowners, and then just the general public to increase awareness of the value of forest ecosystems. So yeah, thank you. And I look forward to hearing from the rest of you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nolan. Okay, so now we will hand it to University of Washington.
Hi, thank you. That's me. I'm Jason Toft here at the University of Washington, and I'm a principal research scientist in the School of Aquatic and Fishery Sciences. And we're super excited to have funding for this project. You see the title there, Application of the Shoreline Monitoring Database to address restoration effectiveness and protection evaluation. So what does this mean? Let's start with all the organizations. So our lab group at UW is called the Wetland Ecosystem Team. So we have been working with a great collaboration of folks over the years, and a lot of those are listed here: Washington Sea Grant, Vashon Nature Center, Northwest Straits Foundation, and Sound Data Science are the groups that all have funding via the HSIL process. So super excited to have this group keep going. As part of these organizations, we do organize a lot of community scientists to work with, and high school groups too sometimes. So a lot of good people working together. Briefly, the project description. Some of you may have seen the Shoreline Monitoring Database online. The chat's been pretty quiet, but I'll put some links here as shameless plugs here shortly. This was developed over the years with funding. It started out the Shoreline Monitoring Toolbox, which we still refer to it as that a lot, on just a way to host protocols and getting protocols out to many different people so that it's available so that we're all doing similar things so the data can overlap. Along with that is training. And then we got to the point with the last round of funding of like, okay, we're collecting all this data. How do we organize it? What do we do with it? And that's with the help of Sound Data Science, developing the website to have these database features. So let's see if I'm smart enough to I'll put that in the link here in the chat just quickly. So if you go to that for the first time, there's some tabs up on top, and maybe the map might be a good place to start. You can click around and see where monitoring is occurring, as well as the protocols in the database. Again, a lot of this monitoring that we're talking about and focusing on is on shoreline restoration, often armor removal, along with planting of vegetation, placement of logs and sediment. There are other protocols in the database as well that address different things, status and trends, and just features that may not be associated with shoreline restoration. So that all exists. And so how are we going to develop this further with this round of funding? We'll be adding some more protocols, at least 3 of them. And we have kind of a laundry list to start from. But if you have a protocol that you're like, oh my gosh, we've been working on this, it's pre-developed, it would be great to have a website to host it, perhaps get database features, let me know. And as 2024 goes on, we'll definitely develop a plan further on that. If you have a favorite shoreline armor removal site that's upcoming and you don't know of anyone monitoring it, that's also a good way to get involved. We'll be monitoring 28 sites this summer with the Greater We. Again, this is very much a group effort. And there's always opportunity to add to that. We can, either try to add it to our current workload, or the best case scenario, since we have all this developed, is to provide a little training and have groups go out on their own with a little guidance, right? And start to monitor your own shoreline restoration sites kind of in your vicinity. Other thing that's going on is there'll be more features with visualizations and whatnot in the database on just when the data is uploaded, how to get a quick view on kind of the length of time monitoring's been there and what it might mean. And then we'll be getting a grad student going here at UW as well. And that's always super great. So that farther down the line, when we're analyzing the data, we have goals on how we can analyze the data to address certain issues, such as sea level rise, proximity to urban development. So those are kind of the big picture things that we're working on. And I'll put another thing in the chat just on, from our last round of funding, Simone DeRoche was our postdoc, and she had a publication come out recently. So it might give an idea kind of how we're addressing all this data and what questions we're trying to answer. Great, thanks.
Thanks so much, Jason. Okay, we're going to keep moving. We'll move over to Washington Sea Grant now.
Hello all, and thanks. Excited to be part of the amazing and diverse lineup of projects here, and to hear some familiar voices and meet some new folks. My name is Jeff Adams, he, him pronouns, and but I'm just kind of a side player of an amazing team of staff, students, and about 250 volunteers and partners who all make up Washington Sea Grant's crab team. So some of you might be aware that green crab's a voracious predator and omnivore that poses some risks to a lot of, particularly some of our more sensitive shoreline habitats and more important areas like pocket estuaries and lagoons and some of those types of things. So, and also some recent work at Washington Sea Grant, by Washington Sea Grant and UW have demonstrated some of those risks and impacts. And there's increasing work by others as well to kind of show some of that. Washington Sea Grant's crab team network, volunteers and partners support WDFW's leadership in addressing green crab risks with core early detection and long-term monitoring at about 57 sites in the Salish Sea. Many of the sites overlap with important restoration projects, and we'd certainly be interested in connecting with others who have projects in similar geographies with core crab team monitoring. And it would have been great to put this on the slide, but there is a map, a Google map at tinyurl.com/wogreencrab, tinyurl.com/wogreencrab that will show you all of our sites. You can zoom in and look at them. It'll also show you where green crab have been found within the Salish Sea. So that's a resource that you might be able to use to connect with us, and we'd certainly be interested in that. As we reach a 10-year milestone for the core part of the program, the HSIL support helps us provide that expertise and experience in partnership with WDFW and the whole community of folks working on the green crab issue. And a key new component that this supports is allowing us to establish and maintain a collaboration with WSU Extension and the DNR supported MyCoast app with a new project we call Molt Search, which adapts one of our protocols, which is a 20 person minute crab molt hunt for contributions from a broad swath of interested community members. The core monitoring program is one, we have incredible retention. So there's not often a lot of opportunity for new folks to join, but there are a lot of folks who are interested. So this is a new tool that we really appreciate the support to be able to launch that will allow a much broader contribution and hit some places where we don't necessarily have data. Also will help us potentially with some additional data on Dungeness crab. So currently we're in the midst of planning and preparing with WSU for the full launch of Molt Search. And we're also training for the launch of our core monitoring season and collaborating to share expertise on various projects and initiatives of the green crab monitoring and management community. And I think that's a very quick summary. So appreciate the time and look forward to connecting and chatting about it.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Okay, let's now move to our DNR team. Pete, you're still muted.
Unmute. How's that?
Sounds great.
Is that good?
Yep.
Excellent. I'm Pete Dowdy. I'm with the Washington Department of Natural Resources, the Nearshore Habitat Program. And our project just got rolling in November, so we're still pretty early on. And here's the issue: we're focused on floating kelp in the Washington state waters of the Salish Sea, where we have experienced some sharp declines in floating kelp, particularly in South Puget Sound and scattered sites in Central Puget Sound and elsewhere. And we've had places where kelp is very resilient. And we don't really understand what's going on. And so the context is to have a sensible management strategy. We kind of got to understand what's going on, especially with these declines, which are happening now. We've seen beds lost in just recent years in South Puget Sound. So what we're doing, the purpose of this project is to identify factors associated with these patterns of loss and resilience. And what we're doing, a lot of field work. And you see the sites there. We have 15 sites scattered over a large region, and we got 3 main components of field work. We're doing dive surveys to characterize benthic habitat. We're doing intensive characterization of the kelp existing at these sites. That's both physical characterization and biochemical characterization. And we're doing environmental conditions monitoring, both with continuously logging sensors and monthly visits, discrete sampling, collecting water samples, sending them to the UW lab for analysis. So that's a lot of field work. And so 2024 is basically an intensive field effort, and that's going to roll into 2025. And we'll also in 2024 be synthesizing existing data sets. And then as we roll into 2025, we'll start analyzing the data we collected and integrating that with the synthesis of the existing data. And so our products down the road are going to be reports on the existing data, technical reports on what we've assembled in terms of the factors and how they affect kelp. And in addition, we're going to be making recommendations on a comprehensive monitoring program for kelp. The current situation right now in this region is we have some good monitoring programs that cover sub areas. We do not have a comprehensive kelp monitoring program. So we're going to be making recommendations. This is a huge project, lots of intensive field work going on right now. And there's a diverse and large coalition that's making this happen. And I'll just give you the quick list. So with Washington Department of Natural Resources, University of Washington, University of Chicago, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, Northwest Straits Commission, Reef Check, Samish Indian Nation, Marine Agronomics, USGS, Edmonds Underwater Park, and the Puget Sound Restoration Fund. And there you go. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Pete. Okay, we're going to move to the Seattle Aquarium for some more kelp.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for that. That was actually a great intro. I don't need to provide too much background into the need for kelp conservation and restoration in Puget Sound. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Zachary Randell. I'm a researcher at the Seattle Aquarium, and I am happy to be leading a project here with you all, developing methods or expanding upon methods of using remotely operated vehicles to conduct benthic surveys. So essentially, when it comes to surveying the benthos, scientific scuba divers are the go-to tool. However, we as divers are limited in how much area we can cover. We're limited in how much data we can collect. We have to carry around our life support equipment on our back, the breathing gas to breathe. So remotely operated vehicles have a lot of potential to expand the area that we can cover and the amount of data that we can collect, but they're relatively new in kelp forests. Their price has been coming down, their size has been coming down, and they are far more customizable now than where they were previously. So we've developed methods of running ROVs in kelp forests and gathering data, and we're going to expand upon all of that with this HSIL project to better understand how these devices can contribute to kelp conservation and restoration in Puget Sound. So our broad objectives, we're going to partner with Reef Check to conduct an ROV diver data collection methods comparison. So we'll be running the ROV over the exact same transects that Reef Check divers are surveying on that same day. As part of that, we're also partnered with the Samish dive team to conduct this methods comparison up in the San Juan Islands to broaden the geographic extent that we can make that comparison. We're also partnering with Puget Sound Restoration Fund to run the survey, the ROV along their Jefferson Head bull kelp enhancement site to see how ROVs can contribute to bull kelp restoration monitoring. And finally, we're going to be expanding upon a bull kelp habitat suitability model to update some environmental layers, add some more bathymetry, some fine scale bathymetry, and also incorporate ROV derived metrics to improve the fine scale resolution of the predictions of habitat suitability to help guide bull kelp conservation and restoration. So upcoming milestones, we have fieldwork with Puget Sound Restoration Fund coming up this spring. We have the first instance of the methods comparison coming up in September. And then we are going to be modifying the bull kelp habitat suitability model, and we'll have the first revision of that ready by the end of the year. So anyone that's interested in the kelp forest or even eelgrass conservation restoration world, I'd be more than happy to continue engaging with you all. Note that everything we're doing is open source, so we're really happy to help other groups get similar programs up and running. For example, the Tulalip Tribe's Natural Resources Shellfish team now has an ROV customized just like ours that they're using to monitor gooey duck populations. And lastly, while this isn't part of the HSIL project, it's very much in the spirit of it. It's looking very likely that May 25th, we'll be able to host Blue Robotics, the manufacturer of our ROV, at the Seattle Aquarium for a one-day workshop. So if you or anyone you work with is interested in learning more about these tools or Blue Robotics' new autonomous surface vessel, it's just as small as the ROV, but can cover the surface autonomously, go back and forth. That will be a great opportunity, and I will send out more details to the HSIL team when that is finalized. So with that, thank you all very much, and I will turn it back to you all.
Thanks, Zach. Okay, let's just keep writing this theme and hand it over to Puget Sound Restoration Fund.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Can you hear me?
Sounds great.
Okay, great. Wow, thank you so much for putting me after Pete and Zach. That was great. So yes, we're going to continue the bull kelp train here, and I am going to right away put something into the chat for those of you who feel like you want to listen, but also watch bull kelp restoration in action as we do this. So really the tip of the spear for the project that Puget Sound Restoration Fund has entitled Strengthening Restoration Tools for Rebuilding Kelp Beds in Puget Sound is exactly that, strengthening restoration tools. So Pete spoke to the kelp loss that we've experienced, that loss of our marine forests, our bull kelp, our canopy builders. There's a lot of ways in which we might restore those populations of bull kelp. Maybe it means that we're reducing stressors from upland systems. Maybe it means we're creating designated protected areas. Maybe we need to learn a little bit more about how we can actively go in the water and replant those forests and build out those techniques. And so that's really what we're doing with this project. The aims of this project are to outplant seeded kelp lines at 4 restoration sites throughout Puget Sound, monitor that kelp performance, those environmental conditions, and that ecological community structure, compare the seed sources, data collection methods, and conditions at restored sites versus wild sites, and then bring that all together and create the communications materials that are needed for restoration practitioners. So at the end of the day, what we want to see is the technique that we use, which is to create seeded lines of spool and then bring those down underwater with dive teams and unfurl them on a long line, a practice that we've tried successfully for several years in Central Puget Sound at Jefferson Head, Dokok-Watts. We want to see how does that technique work when we also do it at Squaxin Island, where we did it last year, and we had some success there as well. Different environment than Central Puget Sound, much warmer water. Does it work with a seed source from that source population? Does it work when we try it up in the Strait, another different part of Puget Sound? How does it work when we try it up in the San Juan Islands and in that area? Because the sound is so different and so varied, trying that in different ways in different places is really important so that we feel like we have robust recommendations for what a restoration tool that involves seeded kelp line can actually look like. Success comes in different forms. Does that restored kelp look similar to adjacent wild beds? Really important to understand. And what are the environmental variables that align with kelp success and failure in wild beds and restored beds? It's all sort of part of what we're doing. Key partners and collaborators, let's go. You already heard this from Pete and from Zach. Suquamish Tribe, Squaxin Island Tribe, Samish Indian Nation, Reef Check Foundation, Department of Natural Resources, Port of Seattle, Marine Agronomics, Seattle Aquarium, the Nature Conservancy, and University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee are all part of this team, and we're incredibly thankful to be part of this bigger kelp community. I thought I'd get that in one breath, and I didn't. In 2024, what are we going to do? Outplant and monitor these seeded kelp lines, and the work plan has us doing that in Central Puget Sound, up in the Straits, and at Squaxin Island, accompanied with environmental monitoring at adjacent wild beds. And then beginning to do that first iteration of what did we learn? How would that affect what we want to do next year? There are a lot of audiences for this, and many of them are really part of this Washington State kelp strategic plans and initiatives and work groups collective, as I'll call it. So that includes the Marine Vegetation Implementation Strategy, efforts around the Puget Sound Kelp Conservation and Recovery Plan, DNR's State Kelp Forest and Eelgrass Meadow Health and Conservation Plan up in BC, the Kelp Node Alliance that works in Washington as well, the Kelp Forest Monitoring Alliance of Washington State, our kelp research and monitoring group led by DNR, the Washington Seaweed Collaborative. Beyond that, there's our Marine Resources Committees, which are great audiences for this. I draw attention to the Indigenous Aquaculture Network led by Sea Grant and others. And then we move beyond that to the Eastern Pacific Kelp Forest Restoration Work Group, Greater Farallones Kelper Network, and even beyond that to the Global Kelp Forest Alliance. Kind of the take home at the end of the day is folks really want to know what we have in our toolkit and how we can use it, and what that looks like for bull kelp. And that's really what we're working on here, and are deeply appreciative of the support from HSIL.
Thank you so much, Jody. Okay, we have one last presentation before we move into our first World Café. So I'm going to hand the floor to San Juan Island Conservation District.
Hey everyone, I'm Mitch from the San Juan Island Conservation District. We're moving a little bit away from kelp and into the eelgrass world now, but our project, Eelgrass Restoration through Large-Scale Seeding, focuses on implementing seed-based eelgrass restoration techniques. Over the project period, we're aiming to systematically improve and expand our restoration efforts across the San Juan Islands. Our plan includes employing and assessing diverse seeding methods to rehabilitate declining eelgrass meadows. We're also scaling up our operations for our eelgrass storage system at the University of Washington Laboratories, Friday Harbor Laboratories, and aim to extend our restoration activities to 6 different locations, from 2 which we're currently at. We depend on a bunch of different partners with our project. We work closely with the Washington Department of Natural Resources, their eelgrass restoration team, for a lot of scientific guidance, as well as helping using their data to monitor our sites. We also, again, work closely with the University of Washington Friday Harbor Laboratories, where our systems are housed. And of course, HSIL is one of our major funders, as well as the Salmon Recovery Funding Board contributes a lot of funding to our work. So our strategy for 2024 is going to include a detailed assessment and planting of our planting and harvest sites, as well as going out and actually getting that done. We're hopefully soon going to start expanding our eelgrass cultivation systems at the labs, which will also then allow us to greatly increase our harvest capacity so that we can have a nice big seed stock for our planting methodologies that we hope to implement and test over the next year. One thing that we are doing in the first few months of 2024 is we're really working on creating a systematic approach, which requires iterative assessments of our restoration sites, as well as the techniques that we're employing. And we're working closely right now with WDFW to address the cultural view at our restoration sites in a way that will allow us to keep moving forward with our restoration efforts on a path that sustains responsible restoration practices. Overall, our goal is an adaptable and effective eelgrass restoration system. Our scalable restoration solution to deal with eelgrass declines would be impactful for both the local and statewide marine ecosystems, and thus those ecosystems. So really a lot of our audience is probably here with us today, and the people that we hope to continue to partner with as we collectively work to improve. So I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody about their eelgrass meadows, and maybe eventually this is something that could be expanded out past just the islands. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Mitch. Okay, first, I want to applaud everyone. We are doing really well on time, and that is shocking given how many of you there are. So well done. I appreciate that. Jennifer, if you can go to the next slide real quick so we can talk about our first World Café. Okay, so we will have approximately 20 minutes in this first World Café conversation, just so you have a little bit of a understanding of kind of our day. These will be the same themes on the second half after the second round of lightning talks and World Café. So if 1 or 2 of these really speak to you, you have the opportunity to kind of float around. However, so what we are going to do so that you can maybe participate in the conversations that interest you the most, we will have 4 breakout rooms. In a moment that will pop up. You can self-select which room you want to go into, and you will be able to move around at your leisure within those 20 minutes. So if one conversation is really not serving you, you can move on to the next. We just ask that you try not to be too disruptive if you kind of hop around a lot. But we have 4 themes that we have a facilitator in each room to support a conversation around. We have a few questions to kind of queue up discussion, but this is really about what all of you are interested in doing and talking about. And so you are allowed to take that conversation where it needs to go. The first theme, however, is connecting your work to the broader Puget Sound recovery community. So who are those folks who might be really interested in the work that you're doing, or the products you're developing, or the outcomes you are identifying that may not be directly related to your project? And how can we as a network and as the Habitat Strategic Initiative Lead help connect you to those folks and to that other work that's happening around our communities? The next one are challenges and resources for project implementation. We work in a really challenging environment. There's a lot of complex factors that go into habitat restoration. What are you experiencing, and what are those resources that you either think would be helpful to better address those challenges, or what are those resources that you have found that have helped you to be successful that others may be interested in learning about? And how can you use this network to kind of navigate some of those complexities? The third one is addressing climate change and resiliency. And so this is something that we are all thinking about, I think, on multiple fronts, is really how are we adapting as a region and within our personal systems to be better resilient, to actually think proactively about how climate change impacts our estuaries and our nearshore environment and our shorelines. And so thinking through how can we do that programmatically and as a network and as a community? Where are those opportunities? Where are those gaps? How are you thinking about it? And then the last one really is, how do we center our tribes and our communities? A lot of this work really does have strong partnerships with our tribal groups within Puget Sound. Are there others we want to include? Are there better ways that we can transfer some of the benefits or some of the knowledge so that they can utilize these resources you're all developing? Our communities are on the front line. Our local integrating organizations are really on the ground talking to folks about what their needs are. How can we make sure we're having those conversations so that we can be supportive and informed by those relationships at the community level? So that's where we're hoping to take our conversations, recognizing 20 minutes is a very short amount of time. So we're just going to scratch the surface. But we do want you to have that opportunity to start the conversations. And if you're interested in continuing them, we welcome you to reach out and engage with us. Our advisory team is going to be grappling with a lot of this as well. It's really great for them to hear your thoughts so that they can bring it back to our team's conversations and think about how we support those. So as I mentioned, this is a kind of a choose your own adventure. Jennifer, if you could go to the next slide.
Yeah, and maybe we just check on time and everyone can just disregard my pressing enter too soon on the chat also.
Okay.
About timing, and Elizabeth will confirm when we're going to switch from thing to thing.
Yep. So just some pretty basic discussion protocols to make sure that these conversations are fun, healthy, and productive. You will have a facilitator to help guide that conversation, which means feel free to raise your hand with the little button or the old school wave so that we can make sure everyone has an opportunity to participate. Because it is such a quick conversation, feel free to also contribute conversations in the chat, but do not feel like everyone has to track both the dialogue and the chat. Brains can get overwhelmed, but that's a great place if you want to throw us some feedback that we can track that and pull that into our notes, because there will be a note taker. We just ask that everyone demonstrate respect and curiosity for the other's ideas and opinions. We're all coming from very different places with different experiences, and we want to make sure that we're honoring all of those today. And then if the conversation is not serving you, feel free to move. You are more than welcome to pop in and out at your leisure. So on that note, Jennifer or Habitat Strategic Initiative team, anything to add before I open up the breakout rooms?
Maybe just to clarify, because we're a little bit ahead on time, Elizabeth, would you like us to?
I think we should just give them 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay.
Yep, and then we'll let you know when you can have a break. Everyone should have a full 10-minute break. And then we're going to come back together and go through another lightning round of presentations and another conversation. So I don't want you to lose your steam just by extending it a bit. So I will put the time in the chat and also in your breakout rooms. I'll share so that everyone knows. You'll get a 60-second warning as well, so you know when to wrap up.
And maybe just for logistics too, I'm going to put in the round 2 a lightning talk order just so folks can see that. If it disappears when we go to the breakout rooms or anything, I'll put it back into the chat when we come back. But just for the second half view on deck, so you cannot be wondering throughout your break what's going on.
Perfect. Matt, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, real quick, you might have already said it. If somebody's in my room and they want to jump to another one, is there a button that they're going to be clicking on, or how do they navigate between?
Great question. So when I open up all the rooms, everyone can kind of self-select, and then you can leave the main room. And when you leave the main room, you can go back to the other room. Feel free to chat me. If anyone is having technical difficulties or you found yourself lost in the abyss, I am here, one chat away, and I can help you navigate to where you'd like to be. So I am on deck. Okay, so we're going to call it 10:15, which means at 10:35, we will wrap up and take a 10-minute break. If your conversations are going a little long, that's okay. But we have a hard start again at 10:45 so that we can keep ourselves on track. And I'm going to open these rooms. So you should be able to self-select. Does that look like you can? Okay. I always get a little bit nervous with technology. I'm not sure what you're saying, but I see people are moving. So have fun.
I'm trying to figure out how to get in here. So I don't see the join breakout room. Elizabeth?
It should have popped up, Stephanie, straight on your screen.
I'm right there with you.
Angela, you're having problems
I
too?
don't see anything.
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
I don't see
How
it.
about you
Yeah.
I can assign you. So Stephanie, where would you like me to send you?
Send me to number 2, challenges,
Okay.
resources for project.
Okay, and then hold on tight, Angela. I'll do the same for you.
Awesome.
Where would you like to go, Angela?
Number 3, climate change.
Love
You
it.
rock. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm having the same issue. Put
Who's
me at
that?
number 1.
Joe, you want to
Lucky.
go to number 1? Okay.
Thank you.
Why we have tech support.
Yeah, and John Thompson would like to go to number 2, please.
Go to number 2. Okay. Mike Lemoyne, do you also need some support?
Yeah, number 3, please.
Okay. Pete, where would you like to go?
Climate and resilience, please.
On your way.
And I'm still
You're
challenged.
still challenged. Which one did you say, John?
Number 2, please.
Okay, try that again.
Okay, there we go.
Great. Siobhan, you need to be over with Jennifer. Do you need help? Brandy, you're more than welcome to hang out with me.
Thanks.
Michael, did you want to go, or Paul, anywhere? Did you want to go anywhere, or just take a little me time?
Yeah, I'm on my cell phone, so I'm not seeing what is going on because I'm doing a double meeting today. Double eelgrass meetings today. Can you throw me into any room of your choosing? Happy to go wherever.
Yeah, how about we put you in connecting to recovery community since they have the fewest? Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. And it is 10:45, so hopefully everyone is making their way back to their computers. Whatcom County, you're on deck, so I want to make sure that you are ready to go. Okay, I see you, John. Perfect. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. I know that 20 minutes doesn't even come close to giving us enough time to really wrap our arms around some of these conversations. So hopefully this was just a bit of a teaser. And we are going to have those same breakout groups for the second one. So if you want to keep going on the topic of your choice, that's wonderful. Or if you want to move to a different conversation, that is also completely allowed and supported. So you can continue on with a new set of folks. So we are going to move into another round of presentations, and I think I'll just hand the floor to Whatcom County at this point, and we'll keep moving.
Good morning. I'm John Thompson with Whatcom County Public Works. I guess this is proving that lightning does strike twice. Erica Douglas, who's our environmental programs manager, and I teamed up on this presentation. So our project is capacity to expedite the WIRA 1 culvert and fish barrier prioritization design and implementation. So with this grant, it's going to supplement local funds. We had match discussion in our breakout session to build staff capacity, increase the pace of removing fish passage barriers. This will restore access to historically occupied salmon habitat. We'll be working with the salmon co-managers and other WIRA 1 partners to prioritize, sequence, and begin design work in priority areas. Our key collaborators and partners are the salmon co-managers, which in the Nooksack is the Nooksack Indian Tribe, Lummi Nation, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as the cities of Bellingham, Ferndale, Linden, Whatcom Conservation District, Nooksack Salmon Enhancement, and the Washington Departments of Transportation and Natural Resources. This coalition of folks working on fish barrier removal works to magnify barrier removal benefits by coordinating projects among our many partners. So key milestones for 2024 include building staff capacity by hiring new staff within 2 divisions of Whatcom County Public Works. This is creating a dedicated fish passage team. Before we had various groups working on fish passage. We'll still have that, but this brings a fish focus group into our team. Our longer goal is to create a more predictable conveyor belt of projects that are in all phases of development, from identifying and prioritizing projects, design, and then construction. We are also funding technical staff from Nooksack Indian Tribe and Lummi Nation to offset their costs of participation in the prioritization, sequencing, and project design. We'll be hosting a fish passage assessment and habitat assessment training with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife here later this month. It will be composed of 2 sessions related to fish passage barrier assessment and 1 session of habitat assessment. And this training is going to be offered to Whatcom County staff as well as many people from our project partners in Whatcom County. The purpose is to build local knowledge and increase our ability to assess or reassess barrier sites, and this will aid prioritization, guide implementation, and measure effectiveness of our projects. We'll also be updating our YRO1 4-year culvert work plan. This is something we've done for a number of years now. Capacity is limited how frequently we do this. But we entered into a memorandum of agreement with the Nooksack Tribe, Lummi Nation, and DFW last July. And the purpose of that is to coordinate our work on addressing fish culvert, fish barriers. The 4-year work plan is an effort that we've led with local partners to coordinate and update, who has work planned where and when. And this coordination effort is critical to sequencing projects by identifying geographic focus areas, target species, and potential miles of habitat restored to achieve the greatest benefit possible. We are in the process of initiating an alternatives analysis for a bundle of culverts in Black Slough located in the South Fork Nooksack River. We'll be contracting with a private consultant to do alternative analysis and begin design for 5 or more culverts in this priority area. This work is being coordinated with the recent county acquisition of about 150 acres and we're doing riparian and wetlands restoration work on that project area. A final element is the community outreach. We'll be preparing messages and materials to build knowledge and engage landowners in barrier removal stewardship opportunities. So our key audiences for tracking projects on this, tracking progress on this project is our other local governments that are working on fish passage programs. There are a large number of barrier culverts to address in YRO1. I didn't explain earlier, YRO1, for those that aren't familiar with it, is the Nooksack River and the adjacent independent tributaries. And there's also a very large number across the state. There's a variety of new funding opportunities that are available to help facilitate this work. However, the costs are increasing to design, permit, and construct, and it also takes often quite a bit of time to do the design work and permitting that is necessary. So we're working to help inform our partners of opportunities as we also develop a good balance of increasing the pace of our work while keeping expectations realistic. So thank you.
Thanks so much, John. Okay, we are going to move to the Lummi Nation now.
Hi, good morning. My name's Kelly Turner. I am the Watershed Restoration Manager for Lummi Nation's Natural Resources Department. And our project is titled Expediting South Fork Nooksack Projects in Response to Chinook Crisis. And so our primary project goal is to expedite habitat restoration projects on the South Fork Nooksack River to recover ESA-listed South Fork early Chinook. As many of you know, this population suffered a catastrophic mortality event in 2021 and again in 2022. And we will achieve this goal by increasing tribal capacity for technical staff to plan reach scale restoration projects. As part of their responsibilities as co-managers of fishery resources on the Nooksack River, the Lummi Nation and Nooksack Indian Tribe have taken the lead in developing and implementing high priority salmon recovery restoration projects on the South Fork. The Nooksack Tribe is our partner on this HSIL grant. And to achieve this goal, we will be convening tribal, federal, and local partners to develop recommendations and develop hydraulic models to streamline FEMA's letter of map revision and conditional letter of map revision permitting process for floodplain restoration on the South Fork. We will be increasing capacity and collaboration, focusing on integration of habitat projects throughout the South Fork and coordinate landowner outreach. And we'll also be developing high priority conceptual restoration designs and preliminary designs at 3 locations on the South Fork. So our key partners, along with the Nooksack Indian Tribe, are our collaborators on our FEMA Lomer work group. We have developed a work group charter that is co-chaired by the MART coordinator, the multi-agency review team. So EPA's Diane Hennessy, and then also Nooksack Tribe are the kind of co-leads. And then the members include staff from the EPA, from FEMA headquarters, FEMA Region 10, tribal staff, Whatcom County River and Flood, the Puget Sound Partnership, Bonneville Environmental Foundation, and we bring on project engineers as needed. So our anticipated milestones and achievements for 2024 are first, we will be developing a briefing memo describing recommendations to integrate floodplain wetland restoration into habitat restoration on the Lower South Fork. The briefing memo will identify and describe recommendations to advance these projects, including those related to assessment, planning, design, outreach, and implementation. I want to add that what John Thompson just said for Whatcom County, some of the culvert work they're doing on the Black Slough, which is in the South Fork Nooksack watershed, that's one of the projects that we're looking at is work that we can also do in the river. So we are working really closely with all of our partners in the watershed. And then, as I mentioned, we've co-convened this local work group, finding solutions to streamline floodplain permitting and to achieve compliance with FEMA's risk mapping, assessment, and planning program requirements to support timely implementation of restoration projects in the regulatory floodway of the South Fork Nooksack River. So we've convened that work group. We're working on our charter. And the outcome is to develop a report with recommendations for streamlining the process and get some clarification on how project sponsors can work through this permitting process. And then we will also be contracting with an engineering consultant to develop one or more hydraulic models that could be used across project reaches to provide efficiency for current and future design projects and the floodplain permitting process. We're currently working on putting together our request for proposals for that. And then finally, we're going to be developing conceptual and preliminary designs for 3 projects on the South Fork Nooksack River. 2 of those designs will be completed this year. So those are already in process and on track to be completed this year. So key audiences or demographics that might be interested in this project are first and foremost the communities within the Nooksack River watershed. So the communities of Lummi Nation and the Nooksack Indian Tribe, landowners along the South Fork Nooksack River are very engaged with these projects. And then outside of our watershed, any project sponsors working in the FEMA floodway in Region 10, the overall river restoration community, so consultants and engineers, again, looking for solutions and tools that can help others trying to do this critical restoration work in the floodway. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Okay, we are going to move to Tulalip tribe.
Hi everyone, my name is Heidi Stewart and I'm with the Tulalip tribes. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our restoring coastal estuaries and embayments that are impacted by the railroad project. So the goal for this project is to be a catalyst for regional restoration of multiple coastal stream mouths and embayments that are impacted by the railroad along the shoreline of the Puget Sound. This project provides capacity for the Tulalip tribes to lead this regionally significant restoration outcomes through the extensive coordination and collaboration with partners. So we're focusing on engagement with the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad, or BNSF, to identify some necessary technical information to develop some feasible conceptual designs for habitat restoration. Our advisory group to help us kind of prioritize different restoration sites have included representatives from BNSF, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Estuary and Salmon Restoration Program, Washington Department of Ecology, Snohomish County, and the South Puget Sound Salmon Enhancement Group. So our key objectives for 2024 is to conduct estuary restoration feasibility assessments and to prepare conceptual habitat restoration designs for 10 priority sites. And these sites have been identified in previous phases of this project. So we have our 10 that are outside of the BNS right-of-way, and we will continue to build assessments for these projects with input from BNSF and stakeholders such as other tribes, cities, counties, landowners that are adjacent to the railroad tracks. We will also develop a tribally focused implementation plan for advancing priority sites to full design, the permitting and construction. So this will include a funding strategy, a targeted schedule and permitting strategy, and where possible, with the roles and responsibilities for BNSF and adjacent landowners. So a few updates for what we've been working on this past few months. We are currently working with BNSF to submit for the aquatic organism passage grant, and the plan is to replace 9 culverts with bridges along the railroad tracks. And we've identified that some of these sites will require work outside of BNF's right-of-way. So the plan is that once we get funding, BNSF will do all the design and construction work within their right-of-way. And so we are kind of going to be responsible for the outside of right-of-way. Some of these stream channels will need to be realigned or moved. And so we're going to be working with a contractor to develop 10% designs for these areas. So we've identified these sites. Our next steps is to do some landowner outreach, and then we should have an RFP out for a contract in the next week or two to get moving on the design work for outside of the right-of-way. And then we are also currently drafting a contract with BNSF to assist with surveys and a geotech investigation of the Sequalichu Creek, just north of the Nisqually Delta. And then some future work for this year is that we plan to start outreach with other tribes on how best to work with BNSF to replace the culverts with bridges, and to identify what grant funds can be used to fund the final construction and design work, including the outside of right-of-way work. So key partners are landowners within the railroad tracks and the tribal entities in those areas, and as well as counties and communities. So super excited to get started on this work and start partnering with everyone.
Thanks so much, Heidi. Okay, let's move to the Northwest Straits Foundation.
All right, good morning. I think it's the morning, yeah. So I'm Lisa Kaufman. I'm with the Northwest Straits Foundation. I'm the director of programs there. So the Clayton Beach Eelgrass Restoration Feasibility and Design project is kind of an offshoot of another restoration project that we're currently working on at Clayton Beach on the near shore. And we kind of stumbled across this element of the project during the initial investigations of the nearshore side of the project, where there's 1,300 feet of rock armor, derelict pilings, and debris from a historic railroad trestle that used to bypass the shoreline there. We were working with DNR initially to look at doing some eelgrass surveys along the nearshore, and looking at maps, we all sort of like, well, what's that gigantic hole in the ground offshore? And it was determined that it was an historic dredge hole where that they actually dredged 13 acres of sediment out of in order to fill behind the trestle and all the rock armor. And so we sort of started thinking about whether we could investigate the feasibility of filling that dredge hole and then doing an eelgrass restoration project. And so that's kind of the basis of this work, or it is the basis of this work. So in the process, and what we hope to do, or we will be doing, is continuing some of the eelgrass monitoring and surveys there, as well as doing some intensive investigations of the sediment composition in and around the dredge hole within the existing eelgrass beds in order to find the makeup of the sediment that is going to allow us to have successful eelgrass transplanting and restoration there. We hope that in the nearshore restoration project that we can actually take a lot of that rock off the shoreline, do an initial partial fill, and then the feasibility aspects of this project also will include identifying opportunities to partner with other dredge projects that are going on around the North Sound to find beneficial reuse sediments that would then fill the rest of the hole. And we're also working we will be working with Western Washington University and the Shannon Point Marine Center. Their students there will be eventually propagating eelgrass shoots for the eventual transplanting. And so the HSIL funding will help to kind of kick that off and set up their processes for doing that. Every time we kind of start diving into other details of the whole Clayton Beach project overall, we keep learning new things. The nearshore has been identified as burrowing habitat for sand lance in the areas where there actually is no armor. So we're just looking at all these great opportunities to restore a pretty significant area of shoreline in the North Sound. So in this coming year, we got off to a bit of a slow start and missed our window of opportunity last summer to do our sediment sampling. So we'll be doing that once we finish, obviously, our QAP process. We want to confirm the full bathymetry of the dredge hole so we can really have an understanding of exactly how much, how many sediment, but the volume of sediment is that we're going to need in order to fill that hole. And we'll begin the RFP process for the whole feasibility study. And then project-wide begin our tribal outreach to all the various tribes. There is ownership in this area from the Upper Skagit tribe. They own at least part or all of that hole. It's sort of up in the air as to how that ownership actually lies. And then obviously there's a lot of tribal use and fishing in this area as well. One other thing that's coming out of our other feasibility study and investigation is that we're trying to determine, is this depth of this hole actually having an impact on the wave energy of the actual nearshore, and how that's going to impact the restoration as well, and the abutting railroad that goes along this entire shoreline. So other key partners, in addition to our partners at DNR and Western Washington University, the Nearshore project, we're partnering with the Skagit and Whatcom Marine Resources Committees. Washington State Parks, obviously, is a huge landowner in this area. DNR has tideland and bedland ownership. Skagit Tribe, Upper Skagit, as mentioned. BNSF, certainly an interested party. Puget Sound Energy used to own the trestle and therefore still has a right of way and ownership there. And of course, we have 600,000 plus annual visitors that come to Larrabee State Park that, from an entire project perspective, it's going to be a great opportunity for us to provide education and outreach about the overall ecosystem and how we can ensure that we have connectivity of habitats from the uplands all the way down into the nearshore and then into our subtidal areas. So we're really looking forward to kind of diving into this whole project. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Okay, we are going to hand the floor now to back to Bonneville Environmental Foundation.
Hello again, everyone. Alan Warren from Bonneville Environmental Foundation, here to tell you about another one of our projects, the Carbon Credits Regional Operator. Similar to the TDR project I told you earlier, this project seeks to leverage state investments in restoration to provide more capacity for implementation partners, this time on the long-term stewardship side of things. Project partners include City Forest Credits, a carbon registry, Skagit Conservation District, South Puget Sound Salmon Enhancement Group, the City of Sumner, Whatcom County, Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust, and with BEF matching funds, the Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership. Across all those partners, funding is in place to restore over 500 acres during the course of this project period, which we will then enter into carbon credit protocols, verify the credits, sell them, and recycle the revenues back to those partners to help fund long-term stewardship of those project sites. We held a kickoff meeting with partners this fall, but things really get going in earnest this winter with the Skagit Conservation District and the Salmon Enhancement Group both conducting their plantings with funding from the State Conservation Commission and the Salmon Recovery Funding Board, respectively. Once the last tree is planted this spring, we will have 6 months to support them in getting their carbon credit paperwork submitted, which also includes being able to aggregate other planting projects that have occurred within the last 36 months. It's anticipated that the initial batch of carbon credits will be certified by November of this year. And then BEF's commodity sales team will pursue carbon offset sales to some of our corporate partners. The revenues from which will go back to the project implementers to provide additional capacity for ongoing maintenance of the project sites. The remaining projects will be planted on a rolling basis each winter, continuing through June 30th, 2027. Beginning in 2025, we will start expanding this program with additional project partners with funding from the Climate Resilient Riparian Systems LEAD program. And we're going to pursue a U.S. Forest Service grant this spring to try to expand this statewide with some organizations that provide assistance to small forest landowners. We hope to show state agency partners and state legislature that a significant opportunity for leveraging current investments with carbon credits exists and can be scaled up with an additional investment. The overall goal is to create an ongoing program to provide this technical assistance to project implementation partners across the entire restoration system. As many of you are painfully aware, ongoing stewardship of restoration sites is an unfunded need that causes significant capacity constraints for organizations across the state. Leveraging carbon credits isn't a silver bullet to address that issue in its entirety, but it can be an important tool to provide additional capacity to implementation partners. By working across multiple project types, funding sources, organization types, and scales, this project will help clarify which circumstances carbon credits work best with so that a program can be scaled up in the near future. As more of our implementation partners get their projects done and we work them through the verification and sales process, we really look forward to sharing more about it and what we learn with you all and broader audiences. And one thing I'll note too is I unfortunately have to jump off for the flood. I'm hosting the Floodplains by Design Lunch and Learn at a little bit later, and so I might not be able to join the next World Café, but I'll plug my email address into the chat. And if anybody has any interest in the carbon credit project or the TDR project, feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Alan. Okay, we're going to hand the floor now back to Kitsap County for another project.
Hi, again, I'm Britney Gordon, Natural Resource Coordinator in Kitsap County Community Development. And our Kitsap County Derelict and Abandoned Vessel Program project is still getting under contract. The project will develop a derelict and abandoned vessel program to be housed within Kitsap County government, which builds upon the existing DNR, Derelict and Abandoned Vessel Program, and their resources. The project will bring together partners and stakeholders, including law enforcement, ports, local health officials, and environmental partners to improve collaboration on derelict and abandoned vessel issues. So the existing DNR Abandoned and Derelict Vessel Program is a fantastic program. However, DNR doesn't have the staffing to implement the program in all areas as much as they'd like to, so they really encourage local jurisdictions to lead collaboration to help implement that program in their local areas. So their program's fantastic, and in our early outreach with stakeholders, especially local law enforcement agencies and ports, we found that there was a lack of knowledge amongst those groups on how to access all of DNR's resources available to them. So those stakeholders also identified a major need for collaboration across jurisdictions and agencies as vessels move between jurisdictions. They also requested support with some of the administrative burdens associated with abandoned and derelict vessel removal and management. So Kitsap County plans to work with these partners as well as DNR to develop a local program that utilizes DNR's existing program and resources. We will host regular advisory committee meetings to guide the program development. We will create and maintain a program webpage with links to available resources for our partners and the public. We will compile training resources for our local implementers, and we will identify we will develop a much needed vessel tracking database that local jurisdictions can use to track the movement of vessels across jurisdictional boundaries, as well as contacts made with vessel owners. We will also do our best to work through any other implementation barriers identified by our partners during this process. Derelict vessels impact water quality as well as aquatic vegetation when they sink or ground, and abandoned and derelict vessel issues were identified as a high priority by our citizens and by the Ecosystem Coordination Board. We're also excited to build partnerships with our less traditional partners in law enforcement and ports, whose work still intersects closely with the natural environment. We believe these partnerships will have ecosystem benefits that extend beyond the realm of derelict and abandoned vessels. When we initially reached out to our law enforcement and port partners, there was very enthusiastic response to this proposal, and we'll be working closely with our coalition partner at the DNR Abandoned and Derelict Vessel Program. The goal is to develop a local program housed within Kitsap County government for the long term. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Brittany. Okay, we are going to move now to the Stillaguamish Tribe of Indians.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charlotte Schofield, and I'm a fisheries biologist with the Stillaguamish Tribe of Indians. And our project is the Habitat Restoration Project Development and Implementation. So this HSIL funding supports staff capacity for the Stillaguamish Tribe, a disproportionately impacted community, to continue to participate in habitat restoration and land acquisition planning to implement their vision for salmon and watershed recovery. Achieving their vision depends on the restoration and protection of natural tidal and riverine processes to improve habitat for salmon and other fish, wildlife, and plant species that the tribe has depended on since time immemorial. While this work is primarily completed by Stillaguamish Tribe of Indian staff, we are partnering with Snohomish County Parks Department and their Surface Water Management Division on the Trafton Floodplain Restoration Project. In doing so, we have been able to expand the restoration footprint onto the county's property and increasing the acreage from 158 to 230 acres of to-be restored floodplain on the North Fork Stillaguamish. Also, all of the work completed with the HSIL grant is supported by the Stillaguamish Watershed Council, which is a group of diverse stakeholders who are dedicated to restoring and maintaining a healthy Stillaguamish watershed. And lastly, our work is guided by the Stillaguamish Watershed Council approved Stillaguamish chapter of the Puget Sound Chinook Salmon Recovery Plan. It's a bit of a mouthful. So our anticipated milestones for 2024 are to finalize designs, submit for permits, and solicit bids for qualified contractors for our 2 large-scale restoration projects. As I just mentioned, the Trafton Floodplain Restoration Project is about 230 acres and along 2 miles of the North Fork Stillaguamish River. The restoration elements for that project include lowering levees and berms, side channel excavation, large wood installation, and extensive riparian planting. The other project is the Zissaba 2 Estuary Restoration Project. It is also about 230 acres, and restoration elements include the lowering and setback of levees and extensive tidal channel excavation. Please note that design and restoration will be funded through other grant sources, and this HSIL grant supports our staff capacity to implement these projects. The other task in our HSIL grant is to support staff in completing the work necessary to acquire floodplain property, and a non-HSIL grant will fund that acquisition. And we plan to acquire at least 1 floodplain property for protection into perpetuity. The tribe's acquisition strategy is to link a corridor of lands from the spawning grounds to the tidelands to restore and steward them for the enhancement of their treaty reserve resources. Our key audiences are other salmon recovery project practitioners. The tribe would be happy to share our approach on the land acquisition strategy and share any information on the process of implementing large-scale restoration projects. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Charlotte. Okay, now we are going to move to the Skagit River System Cooperative.
Hey, thank you, Elizabeth. My name is Mike Lemoyne. I'm a Director of Research and Recovery here at Skagit River System Cooperative. If you didn't know, we are a tribal authorized organization that represents Swinomish and Sauk-Suiattle. The HSIL project that we have going on currently is evaluation of dendritic network structure that globally we know influences species presence, density, and biodiversity. What I mean by dendritic structure is really the branches. And often this is evaluated within stream systems as you can imagine, a watershed and all the tributaries flowing down to the main stem is like branches of a tree. And depending on how those branches come into a system, its shape and overall structure, it can influence where and how many organisms occur within that dendritic structure. Over the last 30 years, estuarine restoration has moved from what we could say is more simple dike breaching to more elaborate engineered design channel excavations. And what we've appreciated over the last 30 years is that some of these tidal networks in the Delta and in some of the nearshore areas take some time to develop through sediment deposition processes, unlike streams that are more erosional and that can happen during a flood event. And to this, noting that these habitats are very important for ESA-listed Puget Sound Chinook, some folks, a researcher here at SRSC, Dr. Greg Hood, has developed some allometric norms. So looking at reference sites, reference marshes, he's developed some basically ballparks of what channel configuration should look like the dendritic network. But we found that over the time of implementation of this tool is that a lot of restoration practitioners, almost 100%, underbuild these projects to allometric norms. And what we find is that understanding fish benefits within these dendritic networks might be beneficial for restoration practitioners to better account for the benefits of these dendritic structures, these tidal channel structures in the system. So the project goal is to develop basically some design strategies that restoration practitioners can use, directly linking fish benefit to the branching networks in these systems. Secondarily is to investigate how tidal networks influence biodiversity and species densities in these networks to understand more ecologically how dendritic networks can influence biota. The project collaborators, SRSC, we have Greg Hood being involved, Tulalip Tribes, Todd Zaki at NOAA, Corey Green and Josh Chamberlain, and the Nature Conservancy, Emily Howe, are all project collaborators on this project. It will include the Skagit, Still-Squamish, and Snohomish deltas to give us 3 systems and duplication there to evaluate fish response to these kind of network structures. And with that, since Charlotte's on, I want to say SRSC greatly appreciates the invitation from Still-Squamish tribe to work in the Still-Squamish Basin. Oh, and our milestones going forward, we're still developing the QAPP. Part of our project is to reach out to restoration practitioners within the Woodby Basin to better understand how we might best inform design considerations. And we hope this fall to get some initial mapping completed of these networks.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. Okay, I think we'll move to the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Hi folks, I'm Max Lambert. I'm a research scientist with Washington Fish and Wildlife. This is probably a weird project, but hopefully one that's of interest to some folks. This project is a research study. It's starting from the premise that we've lost a third to half of our freshwater wetlands in Western Washington, including around Puget Sound. And in many ways, stormwater facilities, which are completely built water bodies, replace the floodwater control and pollutant protection aspects that wetlands used to provide for protecting our streams, for protecting Puget Sound. And this partnership with 10 different cities and counties, including cities of Tumwater, Olympia, Lacey, Kitsap County, Pierce County, City of Tacoma, City of Bellingham, King County, Snohomish County, and City of Bellingham, are trying to understand how we can actually enhance potential structure and habitat functions within these stormwater facilities so they can maintain their capacity for controlling stormwater, for cleaning out stormwater before it hits our watersheds, and providing habitat for birds, for amphibians, and for beaver. So we have a pretty nice collaboration across much of the Puget Sound region. We have a whole diversity of ponds we're playing with, and we're taking habitat measurements and biodiversity measurements for the next 2 years on this project. I think one of the interesting aspects of this study is also including a social equity component of this. So we're characterizing ponds not only by the land cover around them, how much tree cover there, lawn cover versus built environment, but also the social makeup of the communities around them, from different degrees of economic disparities, racial disparities, a whole variety of social dimensions. So we have ponds that are in highly built lower income communities. We have ponds that are in wealthier communities and more forested areas. And so these ponds are functioning as kind of a first line of defense of protecting watersheds from erosion, from pollution, but also a potential way for us to actually get some biodiversity lift and for providing biodiversity viewing opportunities equitably across our communities. And we're also partnering with the Woodland Park Zoo and the Whatcom County Amphibian Monitoring Project, as well as WSU Puyallup and St. Martin's University for some community and student training aspects of this research as well. So this is ongoing. It's kind of underway now. Our QAP is finalized and approved, and the field work is ongoing. So far for 2024, we've characterized the ponds using land cover and social conditions, and we've selected a little over 200 ponds across these areas. You can see on the map there has several thousand ponds that were available to us for the study, and we've taken a fraction of that for our research. We've already done a whole variety of bird point counts at a variety of these sites. We're collecting amphibian data now and beaver data as well. So by the end of this year, we should have our kind of first preliminary crack at understanding what the biodiversity landscape looks like across a whole lot of these ponds and what habitat conditions are already prevalent in the diversity of pond conditions support the most biodiversity. So that should be coming out later on this year. We have one more year in 2025 as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Max. Okay, and we're going to hand it to a different part of our DNR agency. Hand it to you, Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Joe Rocchio, and I manage the Washington Natural Heritage Program embedded here in Washington DNR. And our program tracks the location of rare species and ecosystems and then uses that information to develop various data products that are intended to inform land use decisions as well as proactive conservation efforts. And so our project is to develop essential conservation areas as a blueprint for protecting important ecological lands in the Puget Sound Basin. So the basin harbors significant portions of Washington's terrestrial biodiversity. 69% of the state's ecosystems occur in the Puget Sound Basin, and nearly 40% of the state's rare plants also occur in the basin. And to state the obvious, land conversion and human-induced stressors, have reduced the footprint as well as decreasing the ecological health of this biodiversity. So to stem that loss, we really need some conservation actions that are guided by science-based priorities. So to help address this need, our program has been maintaining a database of the location of rare plants and ecosystems for about 40 years. We collectively call these rare elements. And we've documented to date 1,400 locations in the Puget Sound Basin representing these rare plants and ecosystems. And already these occurrences help guide land use decisions and conservation actions. But the footprint of these locations really are just where these species or ecosystems occur. They don't indicate the surrounding lands that are necessary to conserve them. And so also these occurrences are not prioritized according to their urgency for protection and management needs. And so our project goal is to delineate the conservation site boundaries around these 1,400 occurrences. We call these sites essential conservation areas or ECAs, and ECAs, again, delimit that area needed to be protected or managed to ensure the long-term viability of these elements. We're also going to assign each ECA a priority rank indicating its biodiversity value, management urgency, as well as protection urgency. And then for selected sites, we're going to assess climate vulnerability. And then with those ranks, ECAs really help simplify the conservation message by integrating priorities of many different rare elements that might be present at the site. And again, just kind of highlighting the importance in conservation actions for that site as well, based on those elements. Our primary project output will be a geodatabase and an associated map with that will be shared on our online data viewer. And this will also be developing numerous other data products, such as reports for each essential conservation area. We're going to be developing species distribution model to help guide field inventory work. And then also we anticipate finding new locations of rare plants and ecosystems as part of this project. An anticipated outcome is again, a more efficient and effective protection of these ecologically important lands by directing those actions towards sites with the greatest biodiversity value. And again, we're also where the most immediate protection and management needs are located. Importantly, these ECA boundaries are non-regulatory, but they are going to be provided to assist decision makers in considering biodiversity values. And we anticipate that the ECA geodatabase will help identify ecologically sensitive areas, for example, as part of SEPA or forest practices reviews, potential new natural area preserves, which is really important to our program, as well as guiding other conservation land acquisitions, for example, land trusts in their work. We're partnering with NatureServe, which is the umbrella organization for natural heritage programs across North America. They're going to be developing species distribution models and helping us update the conservation status ranks of these rare features. And that's essentially a rank indicating how rare or imperiled these species and ecosystems are. Our project is on a 4-year time frame, and in 2024, we are almost completed with our QAP. We've developed already a list of rare species and ecosystems that occur in the basin. We're going to be developing a field key to terrestrial ecosystems, producing a map of potential locations of rare ecosystems for future field inventory work. And we're going to be completing our first set of species distribution models. Key end users we anticipate to be governmental agencies from the state to federal level, NGOs such as land trusts, and even private individuals. Really any person or entity concerned about land use impacts to biodiversity and proactive preservation, we anticipate will find value in the project outputs. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joe. Okay, back to commerce.
Hey everyone, I'm Tara Newman. I'm a senior planner in the Department of Commerce's Growth Management Services, and I'm leading our project to update and develop map tools for local and regional land use planning. Some of you might be familiar with our Puget Sound Land Use Mapping Project, which standardizes land use and zoning maps across all 12 Puget Sound counties and their 113 cities, and also contains actual annual housing development data. These maps provide a standardized depiction of land use and growth across the Puget Sound region that's used by local governments and resource agencies to compare planned versus actual development within and across jurisdictional boundaries, and to assess the effectiveness of land use and growth management policies. So the first part of our funded project is to update those maps, which are now about 10 years old. Updating the maps will allow analysis of current land use patterns and trends over the past 10 years, such as where local governments are designating growth and protection of natural resources, and how these designations align with our recovery priorities. So this process involves collecting each local government's new zoning maps, as well as other maps for things like roads, water bodies, and natural resource lands, and combining all of that into an updated standardized land use layer that translates each local government's zoning designations into our standardized land use categories, as well as updating the annual housing data that's attached to that layer, which comes from OFM's small area estimates. We're just getting started on that process, so that will be our focus for 2024. We're starting with the central Puget Sound jurisdictions to try to capture their zoning maps prior to this round of comprehensive plan updates. And then we'll move on to the rest of the Puget Sound jurisdictions. We're hoping to have an updated land use layer sometime around the end of this year, and then we'll keep updating that as local governments submit their new zoning map updates. Then in 2025 and beyond, we'll be engaging an advisory committee to help guide an analysis of growth trends over the past 10 years, as well as developing a web map tool for local planners to use our updated maps alongside other resource agency maps that are helpful for comprehensive planning. We're interested in looking at questions related to where zoning changes have taken place and whether they're consistent with growth management goals, whether changes in observed housing density are consistent with zoning changes, which areas are seeing high or low levels of growth, where growth is occurring relative to critical areas, working lands, climate change risks, priority watersheds, and other natural resource concerns, how much land cover change has resulted from recent growth, how growth aligns with environmental justice indicators and priorities, how growth aligns with things like transit options, walkability, open space, and other community services, and how to identify the areas that are most appropriate for increasing density. So if you're interested in any of these kinds of questions as well and would be interested in guiding our analysis through our advisory committee, as well as helping to guide the development of our integrated web mapping application, feel free to reach out to me about getting involved. We anticipate engaging advisors from resource agencies and local governments around the Puget Sound. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tara. Okay, last but not least, we are going to move back to Washington Sea Grant with Ian.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ian Miller, Coastal Hazard Specialist for Washington Sea Grant. And I'm presenting on this project that we call Parcel Scale Sea Level Rise Vulnerability for Puget Sound. This is a second phase of a project that we initially did with HSIL funding from 2018 to 2020. And the sort of ultimate aim of this project is to try to quantify sea level rise vulnerability for every parcel in Puget Sound. And this concept of vulnerability is sort of key to how we put this project together. Vulnerability in this context can be thought of as a function of exposure, basically whether there's a hazard like flooding or erosion present at that particular place. And then sensitivity, which gets at the assets or the values on the landscape that may be impacted by those hazards. And then finally, this concept of adaptive capacity, which gets at social elements or ecological elements that may affect either of those exposure or sensitivities. In this particular case, we intended to create a data-driven project using publicly available data. So our exposure uses coastal flood inundation maps and some erosion assessment work. In the second phase, we may look at also integrating things like groundwater modeling, for example, that's coming out of the Cosmos project that I guess it was mentioned in our breakout session. The sensitivity is based on things like infrastructure, building layers, for example, road layers, but also integrates potential impacts to habitats associated with upward migration. And then adaptive capacity is a very difficult thing to quantify, but in our first phase, we used a social vulnerability index developed by the NOAA's National Centers for Coastal Ocean Science. And we may look at using some sort of similar way to assess the degree to which communities can or may be able to respond to the stressors associated with sea level rise. So in this second phase, we will extend the project to the west to the mouth of the Strait of Juan de Fuca. The phase one project really only reached about to Dungeness Spit, and you can sort of get a sense for that from the map up on the screen here, which shows the vulnerability results for Puget Sound from phase one. That's dependent upon data published by the USGS. We can extend out to the western part of Strait of Juan de Fuca in this second phase, and then also do some updates of the fundamental analysis behind this. taking advantage of new data available or new approaches that we have access to. Some of the things that you all have presented in the last few hours, I've been taking notes on in the hopes that we may be able to integrate those into this analysis. But then a major key goal or hope for outcome for this second phase is communication of results. I'll put some links into the chat when I'm done here, a paper that we published from the first phase, but also where you can access these data on the Coastal Hazards Resilience Network, which is where the phase 1 results are housed. And you'll note that they are a geodatabase. It's somewhat difficult to work with those. So a key element of this second phase is focused on communication of results in a more easily accessed, interactive online tool that will be developed by Sound Data Science to make it easier for users to interact with and access data for decisions that they may be responsible for making. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That is it for our lightning rounds. Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer, and pop to that next one. Okay, so you know the drill now. We are going to move into our second World Café conversations. Same facilitators, same rooms. I'm gonna pop open the breakout rooms in a moment. It seems like some folks have a little, maybe have a different browser or something going on. So I'm going to stay in the main room to help pop you into your room of choice. And then I will hang out there to help redirect. And we will be in there. We'll give you until 12:05. We'll pull everyone back. So you'll have a few extra minutes. Again, these are big conversations to try to cram into 20 minutes. And then we have a few wrap-up comments and some information to share before we break for lunch. So 12:05, we will put that in the breakout room or the notes, and then I'm going to open those rooms, and you can all kind of direct your way to the conversation that's most interesting. Mitch, do you have a question? Okay.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Where would you like to go, Angela?
Number 3 again.
Number 3, she loves it. On your way.
Thank you.
Let's see, probably to you too, John. Where would you like to go?
How about number 4?
Okay.
Thanks.
Mike, you want to go to 4? Okay.
Elizabeth, could you put me in 2? This is Bob Warner.
Bob Warner is going to 2. Mike, it looks like you, okay. Let's see, who else?
Lisa Kaufman, maybe 1.
1, okay.
Thanks.
Joe, do you need help getting someplace?
Yeah, I was looking to see it. Sorry, I was responding to some of the messages, and this is the same groups. If so, the climate change one.
You want to go to climate change? Okay.
Thank you.
Siobhan, if you're there, I'm trying to send you over to Jennifer. Anyone else need help finding their way? Okay. Resume recording. And once everyone pops back in, I will hand the floor.
Thanks, Cameron and Rebecca. That's all I had. Sorry.
Thanks, Brittany.
Sorry to force you all out of your rooms. It is we did have a couple of rooms end early, and others I saw you guys were going till the very end. So I hope those were some really great conversations. We are getting close to the end of our program here for the full group. In a moment, I'm going to hand the floor over for some closing comments. Just a reminder that for those of you who are subrecipients who would like to learn more about either navigating our Smart Simple grant management system or discussing your cultural resource requirements, we will be reconvening at 1 for some focused office hours, and we'll be here to kind of answer Q&A. You certainly don't have to stay for the full hour, but I just wanted to let everyone else know that that's probably not for you if you're not a subrecipient. You are more than welcome to join us if you have questions or curiosities, but we are starting to kind of wrap up our formal program. So before we do that, though, we did have some announcements that we wanted to share before closing comments. So I wanted to hand the floor over to our sub-award managers to share some resources.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. And thanks, everybody, for sticking with us until lunch. We're almost there to our break. But before we break, I just wanted to share a few helpful resources and quick reminders of upcoming things to keep in mind. So wanted to remind you about our subrecipient guidance manual. This is a really helpful resource that covers many things related to contracting and deliverables and budget requirements and just kind of general things that are helpful during project implementation. So as you have questions come up, the guidance manual is a good starting point to see if maybe your answer happens to be in there. And if you don't find what you're looking for in there, feel free to reach out to Cam and I to help you out. We're always a resource for you to help answer questions. I also wanted to point out that at the end of that guidance document, there's links to some commonly used templates and resources. So that's also helpful to look at if you need some templates or things like that. And added a couple new links to the guidance document, both related to our grant management system. So one is a subrecipient grant management system guidance document. And there's another link to an FAQ document that includes some of the common questions we've been receiving so far with answers to those. And then one last resource I wanted to leave you with is a link to our new Subaward resources webpage. That includes all these resources I just mentioned and much more. And I'll pop the link to the webpage into the chat, as well as a link to our guidance manual. I do recommend that you bookmark the webpage link because you can't access that page from our main HSIL webpage just yet. We will be adding that here shortly, but not quite there yet. So bookmark that webpage is a helpful tip. And that's what I have. So I'll hand it off to Cam to cover a couple other last things.
Thanks, Teresa. Hey, everyone. I just wanted to give you guys a reminder that if your project requires a QAP, it is to your benefit to start that process as soon as possible by reaching out to Ken at Ecology. And I'll pop his name into his email into the chat in just a second. But we are noticing that the QAP process is taking about 4 months to complete. And so it's really important to get that process started as soon as possible and well before you plan on doing any type of field work. And I recommend establishing a clear timeline with your subaward manager and just communicating that with Ken just so that he can prioritize. So I just wanted to give you guys that reminder, and thanks for coming. And now I'll give it off to Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. Well, we've been really thrilled to hear all of your presentations, where the work's taking, but also really the dialogue and expanding how your work is fitting into the broader recovery picture and really offering us opportunities to learn and grow and build together as a community. And we wanted to make sure you all saw the announcement of our schedule for our request for proposals for the upcoming 2024 year. So I'm going to pop that in the chat, the link to our RFP page. The first of those RFPs are coming out the week of March 25th. And it was announced on our blog as well as through the Puget Sound Partnership Gov Delivery. Hopefully it's made it through some other forums now, but those are two great places to make sure you are signed up for getting announcements as well. And you can follow our page to see all the information as it comes out. Anything else we want to say on that, team? Or hand it back to Elizabeth?
Okay, no, I think that's it. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, for participating. Subrecipients, we love hearing your updates and hearing what you're working on in the upcoming year. And for those who are guests, we're just really excited that you were able to join and learn about all of the great work that our broader community is accomplishing. So thank you. And if you have additional questions or follow-up, we really, again, want to keep these doors open. We have 4 implementation strategy leads who would love to connect around topical issues. You hear from our sub-award management team regularly, so do let them know if you have any needs that we can support. And again, for those who would like to learn more about Smart, Simple, or cultural resources, we will reconvene at 1, very informal, optional. Doesn't have to take the full hour, but we're just here to provide some resources for folks who have questions or have some small discussions. And I guess I will hand it, Jennifer, any last thoughts before we break for lunch?
Enjoy your lunch.
Okay, so we'll see some of you back at 1 p.m. Otherwise, we really loved seeing you all today. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.